will come to order. We have some bills to pay and some payroll. We have a bill for Campaign That Wins for $343.78. We have one from Graves Engineering for $603. We have another one for petty cash postage for $35.40. Telegram and Gazette ad for $144. We have two for Graves Engineering, one for $611.25 and another one for $922.10. Along with the readings, all the invoices are included. Do I have a motion to accept the bills as read?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We have a payroll. This will be for Jane and Alan. It goes from 9/18 to 9/23, 9/25 to 9/30. Do I have a motion to accept the payroll as read for those dates?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And we have a little bit of correspondence here. We have a hazardous waste day collection, which will be Saturday, September 30th, from 9 to 1 p.m. at Casella's Waste Facility at 165 Barefoot Road, across from the landfill. And we have a invitation here from the Board of Selectmen. We'd like to thank all town employees for their hard work and dedication that you have provided to the town. We would like to show our appreciation and would invite you to join us Tuesday, September 12th at 5 p.m. in the Selectmen's room for a pizza party. Those that wish to go should contact Mary Devlin for reservations. We have a letter here for Blair. It's to Street Talk, the town meeting warrant. It's for Blackwell Drive, Charlton, Mass. My client desires to have the way laid out of the select board for acceptance of a public way. My client would turn the street over to the town of Charlton. Blair's trying to finish up Blackwell Road and he'll be coming back to us for a warrant thing. We have a public hearing for the Zoning Board of Appeals for Laura and Patricia Contente petition for the property located at 88 Stevens Park Road, Assessor Map 17A, Lot 30, Block G, as applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit/variance for the Town of Charlton zoning ordinance. Petition located at the premises is a single-family home with a garage and storage. Lot is located in an area zone R40. The petition seeks to square off new deck. And that's it for correspondence. Alan, being a little early, do you have any growth management you want to go over?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. One item is, just thought I'd hand out to you, and thank you very much, Frank. Frank had given me a brief update of how we're going to move forward on the timeline for Ralph Nichols' stormwater drainage revisions.
Yep.
So I just handed out to the board, and if you want to take it home, if you want to add anything in a second or not, it's up to you. But he'd like to get on the October 4th agenda probably, or shoot for that. That will give them time to do some field work that he's describing in the paragraph in the email, test pits, designing the revision changes and stuff, and that'll get us back on track to keep reviewing the revision. And also you're looking at the idea of some solar component to the property too. Do you want to add anything? It's up to you.
No, that's really it. So Ralph started construction with his boulder retaining wall, and his boulder retaining wall ended up on the wetland line. And so, and that was before the flags had been reviewed and approved. And so Todd's playing nice and let him continue with the idea that in order to establish the limit of the wetlands so we know how much replication to do, we're going to do test pits behind the boulder retaining wall, get down below the existing or the native grade and see if there's hydric soils, and if there is, how far back could they go? And then we'll take that limit of disturbance times the linear feet of the wall, and that'll be the area that we provide replication for him basically putting the wall where he shouldn't go. So Todd's been great as far as working with us on that, and that's scheduled for tomorrow morning. We'll see how the weather holds out, if it makes sense to do those in the pouring rain or not, but that's scheduled for tomorrow morning. And from there, we would redesign, and we had looked at adding, possibly, we looked at changing it all to self-storage, and then the rear part of it possibly taking and phasing the self-storage, building the front part of it, middle, rear part, 2 or 3, 4 phases, however it makes sense for him to phase it out, jumps with the bank. And then looked at possibly using one of the final phases, the back part, as a solar field, if it makes sense, if there's an interconnect and anything like that. So we have a company doing the analysis with Engrid right now on that. So that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you.
Since we still have a few minutes, another growth management that you're involved in, Mrs. Boucher's zone change.
Oh, good.
Great. You guys want to come up?
Sure.
And that way she won't have to wait.
Yep.
You met with Mr. and Mrs. Boucher at the last meeting, and she hired Frank to do the plan that has to go along with the map revision. If we could look at it for a minute, and then I have a procedural recommendation on how to move it forward in a simple, non-heavy paperwork way to head for the town meeting.
So we were recently here for Roy Gunter for Carroll Hill, this property right here. And the zone change happened, I believe, 2 years ago, which allowed him to come back in and do the A&R going from business enterprise to agricultural. And Ms. Boucher's property is on the other side of Carroll Hill, and she's looking to do something similar, in that she would keep the front on Route 20, the business enterprise, and switch the top portion of her lot to an agricultural, so then she could break it up into like residential lots.
Right. That's a good example.
So I feel it's consistent with what's happening in the area. So
Yeah.
that's.
If you could just, when you finalize that, I took your last one that you mentioned, if you just put some language on it,
Sure.
similar, that can be submitted with the warrant article.
Yep.
I mean, you guys put right on it, proposed zone change from
Yep.
to assessors map, block and lot, right on the parcel.
Yep.
So change it from the darkness to striped, and it just jumps out, and the
Yep.
acreage,
Yep.
that type of thing. And,
Sure.
just a simple little tweak like that, but
Yeah, and we'll make the agricultural versus BDP, label that in
Yep.
on the side. So, yeah, season's good.
Is that Millard Road an actual road or just a paper road?
paper discontinued. It was,
It's dis-
yeah, historically, back in the 19th century. We researched it back then, I would say about 15 years ago. Walmart was interested in it for distribution, and they ended up walking away because the access was narrow and they couldn't work out with Nevada what they needed for their truck
Okay.
stuff. But they researched it at the time and told us that they found the town meeting in the clerk's records that it
has
was
been
discontinued way
Okay.
back, like 120 years ago. Type of thing.
All right.
Right, so process-wise, I guess, for this,
That's what I wanted to bring up. The fall town meeting is a special, and most towns are shifting from the fall being special, but Charlton keeps it special because they schedule it not on a regular, like, third Tuesday, but when free cash is done with the state revenue certification. So under state law, a zoning change for a special needs 100 signatures. So what you did last fall is you helped people out. The 2 that we had last fall, you put it in for them. The planning board has the legal right to put it in. So we were talking the other day about, rather than have Mrs. Boucher go out and get 100 signatures, would the board be willing tonight to vote to submit on her behalf? And that way we don't need a long process of going out and getting the 100 signatures.
Sure. Open discussion.
I don't have any comment.
Anybody?
I'll make a motion that we present this at special town meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Because I don't think I even know 100 people in town.
That's the problem.
You came at the town meeting.
bag of donuts and knock on the door.
I'm used to town meetings. I'm the town accountant in town of Spencer. I was anyway, he's retired. But I've been in town meetings for 32 years. I'm good with that.
Good. We'll hold the hearing on October 4th, the
Okay.
planning board's advisory hearing, and then town meeting is October
16.
16th? It sounds right.
It sounds right, but I
Yeah.
can look it
Will we
up if you want
make
me
it in
to.
time with advertising and everything?
No problem, yeah, we can do it. Good question.
And by the beginning of next week, I'll get you a revised plan with cover letter.
Thanks.
And stuff like
October
that.
16th.
Yeah.
It is.
Perfect. Yeah, that's good enough, but just, I already put a hold on the warrant article today, so we've got a slot for
Okay.
it.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for all your help. And thank you. I'll see you tomorrow too.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Have a good night. Thanks.
Any one quick more before?
Sure. Can we do the complete streets contract? It would take a few minutes. What we got on the agenda, I told you before that they're well-meaning, but the paperwork is like nothing I've ever seen for this grant program with the state. So Mass DOT's Complete Streets, we've been awarded the grant amount of $10,391.48 for the planning board to hire the regional planning agency to do the village district sidewalk master plan. And they can't get going until the state issues a contract between you and them. So they finally issued it the other day. So I've got 8 things that have to be signed by the chairman who brought us to vote. 4 copies of the contract between the planning board and Mass DOT, which is the same template contract you sign on every state grant. So what you'd be voting on this is to authorize the chairman this evening to sign the front page of 4 copies of the contract.
Can we pass this around?
Sure. And it gives the dollar amount right in it. And then there's what they call a contractor authorized signatory listing, which we do for every grant too. That when the bills come in, the planning board chairman has to sign the reimbursal paperwork to the state, because the state reimburses us on the 10,000 plus. So even though we pay the bills at a planning board meeting that you'll all vote and sign, then I put together a reimbursal package to DOT and the chairman signs it. So, and Jane will notarize this, and there's 4 copies of that too.
So this is a contract for 10,000 and change for sidewalk studies.
Yeah, for the sidewalk plan, that will be the long-range listing of anywhere from 15 to 40 sidewalks in the village district. But the regional planning agency under their program is required to be your consultant to do that. He'll work for a week or 2 out there, and then he'll come in and meet with you. He's met with you before, if you remember, and he'll then go over it with you. We'll invite in the EDC because they're interested in it too, and then he'll come back a second time and finalize it with you, and then bundle it off to the state. And it can be updated and changed at any point, but it just gets you into the state. Then they'll give us construction money when we get in for the first 2 sidewalks. That's how they'll do it.
So do we have a time limit to get this project started?
Yes, a time limit to get it done. Originally, we had a time limit of the middle of December, but they didn't issue this till last week, so we pushed it back to the middle of February. So he could get it done before February, but at least by the middle of February, he has to have it done with you.
And then will there be funds to actually do the construction after?
Yes, then we put in, this is called Tier 2, then we put in a Tier 2 application for the first 2 sidewalk segments, which we've talked about are out in the middle here. And then, you know, we put it out to bid and get it worked on.
It's
But
not like a lottery system for the state to give us the money, or?
no, once, it's a weird program, it's like you're a member. You know how I've joked that we're a member of it, like Sam's Club? You got Tier 1 membership. Then that allowed you to get this money to put together the master plan. And then you just put it in at any time for Tier 3 money. I mean, we qualified by doing this. It's just a question of putting it in. Graves Engineering, if you remember, Finance Committee was nice enough to give us the money last year for design. Michael can get going on the design anytime we want, probably when the holidays hit. And then late winter, we put in for the construction money for next year. Yeah. And like I told you, it's casino money, apparently. It's casino revenue is this program.
I'll make a motion that the board authorize the chairman to sign the contract and any other forms necessary for the Complete Streets program.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. And here's the other 4 for the second one that Jane will notarize. So on the front page, just your signature on 4 and 4, if you've got a moment. Well, you can do it later.
Yeah.
Thanks. Leave it with Jane.
All right. Being 7:15, notice of a public hearing for the Charlton Planning Board. In accordance with section 200-7.1 and 200-7.2 of the Charlton zoning bylaws, the Charlton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, September 6th, 2017 at 7:15 p.m. in the Planning Board's office at the George C. McKinstry Building, 37 Main Street, Charlton, Mass. on a special permit application of Burton Engineering on behalf of Concrete Quick LLC, 61 Shore Road, Brookfield, Mass. 01535, to amend a previous approval special permit to add a 100-foot by 100-foot concrete space for a proposal of storing material for a mixing of concrete at an existing industrial mixed-use processing facility located at 17 Griffin Road, northerly of Route 20, Assessor Map 27, Block C, Parcel 4.1. Said property is zoned industrial general. Copies of the special permit application are available for inspection at the planning board office and the town clerk's office during regular business hours. Any person interested or wishes to be heard should appear at the time and place. Alan, if you would start us off.
Thank you. I'll be quick and brief and then turn it over to Frank. Mr. Ames owns Quick Concrete LLC, and in that particular zone, you had to issue back in 2010 for Larry a mixed industrial use special permit, which you granted back in January 2010. So any amendments for adding a new tenant and new small use legally just needs a hearing and needs an amendment. Burton Engineering did an excellent summary. I'll just pass around one for Jane to the board with the application. We highlighted in yellow the basic facts of it for you, but I'd rather defer to Frank to just present the highlights of Mr. Ames if you wish,
Sure.
and then the board can ask any questions.
Okay, so it's fairly straightforward. It's an existing salvage yard with scales and whatnot, so there's a lot going on here. It's an already cleared area. Access would be off of Griffin Road, and what they're looking to do is basically material bays and then a silo and potentially an office trailer. And so what happens is the truck comes in, they have a mixing truck, it mixes it, puts it in the silo, it keeps it fresh, and it's for small batches of concrete. It's not big plant concrete, and so you're able to have, be responsive to requests for small amounts of concrete, on a short notice type of situation. And Mr. Ames can speak to the actual functioning of it a little bit better. There's some documentation provided in the handouts that we submitted. But if you,
Sure, I'll just embellish that a little bit. Essentially, it's a site where I'm putting raw materials. There's no manufacturing, there's no production of concrete whatsoever. The truck that we will use is referred to as a volumetrics truck. So the sand, the stone, the water, everything is separate. And I show up at a job site, and I can basically calculate what I need in terms of strength. Somebody may want a 3,000 pound mix, whatever it is, 5,000 pound concentrated type loads. I've done for like Wyman Gordon, for example. I make the calculations and make the change to the truck, and all the materials dump into a mixing bowl, and about 8-foot auger off the end that's enclosed mixes it all up, and it comes out the end. I can control slump, and I make fresh concrete on site. And when I'm done, it's a quick hose off, and I'm off to the next job. And that's the beauty of that versus the ready mix batch plants where you have to go back every time and get a reload. For me, I load up once, I'm gone probably to the end of the day. The truck is 8 cubic yards, and the average pour will probably be like 1.5, 2 yards at the most. So the site is only going to be to basically domicile the truck, load my materials in the morning, and off to work I go. Maybe I'll come back for reload if it's busy, but that's the essence of it. Maybe I'll end up with another truck eventually, but since there's market demand sufficient for that. But that's the essence of the use, property use.
Do you need a garage to store the truck at night in?
I might do something in the winter. I don't know if it's going to be there. I may be off-site. If I do, it would be like a sprung building, a fabric building. I just get it out of the weather. That's all I want. It's a temporary structure, but that would be the extent. It's not going to be a butler building or anything along those lines. Would that cause some problems for us as far as the use goes?
No, because it's just a pad that you guys have done, right? No. The property owner looks just a
I
pad?
don't think it's even a pad. I think this is just dirt, and
Yeah,
then you
we
have
might put some tailings down, right?
Yeah,
Oh, all right.
Just
All right.
yeah, and then just block bays basically.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So, Yeah, like you think almost like the landscaper yards
Correct,
with,
exactly.
with the bays with the material. Instead of mulch, it's just sand and gravel.
For the silo, do you need to pour a concrete base for the
Yes.
silo?
Some footings probably, yeah. Yeah.
It's 31 feet tall, 35, something.
Yes, 33.
33. So yeah, so you need some decent footing for wind and stuff like that.
Does that fall anywhere under height requirements for the town?
Oh,
I believe max building height was 36 and we're
yeah.
proposing 31, so.
Yeah, you're okay.
And as far as setbacks go, we're well outside of the setbacks, it's central to the site. It's about a 44-acre site total.
And the trucks would go in and out of Griffin Road, probably.
Yep.
right on to number 20.
Yep. Right down 20.
Where's 20?
Oh, I'm sorry.
20's down there.
Sorry, I sent you the wrong way.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm looking at it
Just
upside down.
So his current buildings are further, I guess that would be south from there, correct?
Yes.
I'll make a motion, we approve the request.
Close the hearing first. Sorry.
So make a motion, we close the hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion, we approve the request.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll write it up the next day or two. We have to mail it out certified, just state law-wise, but what happens is you just have to file it at the registry under state zoning law. The clerk holds it for 20 days, and then at the end of the 20 days, she certifies it, and either Burton or yourself files it, and we'll get back, you bring back to us like Larry did in 2010, stamped or sealed by the registry, and then we keep it and the clerk keeps it. But that doesn't hold you up. From this point on, you can go to the building commissioner and just go rolling.
Okay, great. Necessary permits and so on.
Yeah,
And
you
erect
can-
the
you can-
silo and,
Yeah, you can start that tomorrow.
excellent, great, thank you so much.
Right. Thanks. Thanks for your patience. I know it's frustrating that you have to go through this, but state law, chapter 48 for industrial permits, when you add something like this, it has to be a hearing.
Yeah.
And you never know, it could have been something much larger with issues the board had to deal
Noise or
with.
something like that. It's not
Okay.
a noisy operation or anything.
Okay, let's get it right.
Thank
All right,
you.
thanks, leadership.
Good night.
Gentlemen.
Thank you.
Do you keep this one, Alan?
Yes, that's ours. Yeah.
Second place? Second place?
Just put it up here for now.
Perfect, yeah. Just dig through the roll tomorrow.
One doesn't help.
The last meeting, we had really cleared the decks for the next meeting, which was heavy, so.
Do you want to move to the 7:35?
Sure.
We all need public hearing.
Perfect. No problem.
See you.
Oh yeah, did you want to touch base on the easement for Carroll
Yeah, could
Hill?
I just, yeah, so I have,
Can you show it to the board for a few minutes?
Yep.
If you don't mind?
So, Carroll Hill was approved, and as you noticed, the MidState Trail easement was part of the approval. And so you guys already endorsed the A&R. However, we realized when we were doing the easement plan down here, of showing just the trail, we actually wanted to shift it over because there was a culvert that initially we went to the side of the culvert and realized that the culvert's actually used to go under 20. So we revised the A&R plan. The lots are all the same. The only thing that changed was the beginning of the trail at the bottom.
The culvert's now in it because it's kind of part of the trail, believe it or not.
This works out if I line them up. You can actually kind of see, but probably.
So the culvert is how they get under?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
These
Sorry.
Is that where the one of the cow crossings was?
Yeah.
It's not a, it's a box, it's a big box culvert, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little hard to see, but if you can see the
Love to get in this.
angle coming in here and then the angle coming in there changes. And then once we get up here, it all kind of runs the same. So,
So what we talked about is just doing the swap out tonight, that he brought this to show you.
Right.
He'll destroy this one if you could just sign the other one and we'll just replace it in the file.
right, and they brought copies of the new one as well, so
So
yeah.
anything would change is just the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, really, it's just that beginning. The lots are all still the same. It's the trail easement changed, and it was to get the culvert included in it. And so then one of the conditions of the decision was that we bring to you a couple of things. Easement plan, which that looks crazy when it's right on top of another one. Can't really see anything, which basically is the same thing as the A&R, only we screen back the lots to highlight the easement. So it's essentially the same as the A&R plan, just with the easement and brought to a little more focus.
Okay.
And then also, we did got a couple of these. I don't know who wants to take a look at it, but the deed of easement in a sample of the deed. So basically what I did is I just went online and looked up Greater Worcester Land Trust and see what the last easement deed they had was, and swapped out our pertinent information for theirs. Emailed it to Mr. Gunter. He looked at it and he had two minor comments. One was on the maintenance of the trail and reporting stuff. He didn't want the grantor to have the obligation, just the grantee, so he asked me to change one thing on that. And then because of the way that the trust is set up, he just needed to have 5 signatories on it, 5 grantors instead of 1 or 2. So really, aside from, those are the 2 changes from the one that was recorded previously. So
If you could email an electronic file of this to me, you and I can share it with Colin, and especially since you use his template, he's probably fine.
Yeah.
But he just needs to, weigh in and
yeah,
bless
well,
it also.
lawyers comment on things. The one that I took was from, I want to say 2011 or 12, so who knows, in the 6 years. If they've done a couple more of these,
Sure.
they change their language, so it was a good starting point, I think. So,
The easement doesn't affect anybody building a house, right?
no, all the development's all up here. It's really just this part, which is next to all the wetlands and
Really
riverfront
have to
and all
thank
that
Roy
stuff.
too, because prior to this, he just informally let them use the property, and now he's giving them an actual easement that makes it permanent. It's an important segment of the MidState Trail through Charlton, and I know that Greater Worcester Land Trust, and I went to a meeting of the MidState Trail Committee in Worcester last year, and they were really happy about this and appreciative too.
So that's a summary on Carroll Hill. There's a couple items from the decision that I owed you guys, and just wanted to bring those tonight and present
So
them.
we're gonna make a motion to amend the first A&R plan to the new A&R plan.
Yes, and you would sign it and date it for this evening, would be fine. And then you just destroy the old one.
Yep.
Do you have a motion to accept the amendment change to the A&R plan as shown to us?
And this, should I hold on to it until Colin
Why not?
opines on this, because this
Yeah.
has the legal description which references this.
Good
and
point.
If anything were to change, the legal description would change.
Sure.
So this one I can just hold on to, but I wanted to bring it to show that we've done it
Thank
and
you.
to be in compliance with the decision. So.
You got a question?
How is that different from
This has different descriptions on it. That is a legal document, there's an easement, while this is a full-blown A&R.
Right. So this is an A&R plan, easement plan, and on this one, really.
Yeah. What'll happen with this is, after the Greater Worcester Land Trust says it's okay, he'll be filing this and this at the registry as an easement. separate from the
So this
A&R.
is like an attachment to
Separate.
that.
Does
Got
that
it.
come back to us on another night?
It doesn't have to unless Roy and the Greater Worcester Trail lesson you want to, it's your call.
It doesn't, whatever's easiest for the board. It doesn't matter to me. Take it with
You
me
want the
and bring it
Worcester
back some other
Trust to look
time.
at it first?
We might as well wait until in
Yes.
case there's changes made. 'Cause
Yeah.
we're gonna have to.
For the easement, but the A&R,
That we can approve
you
That
can
you could-
probably
Yeah,
deny.
Colin might have comments on this, and if he comments on this, and
Make change, right?
it possibly could change something.
So I'll make a motion that we accept the revisions for the A&R plan of Carroll Hill Road for Mr. Gunter.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And you brought some paper copies, we can.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Easement plan, I'll take it.
More than likely there'll be something changed.
Yeah.
Oh, it was.
It's inevitable.
The language will
Good
probably
luck,
change.
but-
Hopefully the description doesn't
Yeah.
change, because then less work for me. But yeah, you give it to enough lawyers, you're gonna get 4 lawyers, you get 4 opinions, so. And Roy himself is a lawyer, but I don't know that he does a ton of this specific type
Have a
of.
paper one?
Yeah, true.
Yep. This, I will do the cardinal sin and fold it.
Don't see that very often.
Bye-bye, Mylar. We're actually working on getting a Mylar printer, because we go to Worcester to pick these things up right
You guys don't have.
now. No one prints Mylar around here. The Mylar printer we had was an old one, it was only $1,000 to fix it, and then there was a question of
Go
whether,
back now, Grove Street?
and there was a question of whether or not the software would work.
Graves'
because the
office is right
router
above
is so
Acme.
old,
They
they
just
don't
walk
make
down
drivers
the
for it
street.
anymore. So the Windows 10 that we have on all the new
Yeah,
machines
it worked very well.
might not work with it, so we're getting a new plotter to inside.
I live near there too, so it's easy to track.
So it's a different printer for the Mylars? I guess it'd be.
Well, Mylars, you need to do inkjet. You can't do toner printers. And so we have a toner printer because it's cheaper to print,
Yeah.
but it only does black and white, so it doesn't do color. So,
When I was a young planner in Middlebury in the 80s, knew your grandfather well. The town hall bought one, and the old technology was ammonia.
Oh,
And they
yep.
put it in my office, and I had to leave the office if they were ever going to do more than one sheet. And town clerk would come in and tag it. An hour's worth of sheets, you have to leave.
Go up lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Nice. All right, I think that's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for everything, Brent.
So we're
How old are you?
43,
So what year were you? What year were you?
74.
So you were 10 years old when you went.
Does that make you feel?
Yeah, he did a lot of fun, interesting stuff over on 146. Do you remember the Christmas tree farm? That was interesting. He had a good nature about it, though.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a whole lot, man. It doesn't seem like that long ago, either.
Everybody at work looks at it just closer to retirement, that's all. So
That's
it's
the
like,
only way.
like-
Otherwise, you get too depressed. Oh, thank you.
That was Brent's first day. Yeah.
I got 2 extension requests. The first extension request is from Russ Jennings on the Jennings Road Extension subdivision. He completed phase 1, if you remember, and eventually he'll do phases 2 and 3. So that's an annual extension request.
We have a letter here that says, to whom it may concern, we would like to take the opportunity to ask that you place us on your next agenda so that you may review our Jennings Road subdivision. He's looking for an extension approval to September 15th, 2018. Do I have a motion to accept that date?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And the second one is from Tarek Markowski for Ted's package site plan approval for the remaining small building they haven't built yet, keeping it active and extending the approval for another year.
Hey Alan, I am writing this email to formally request an extension of a site plan approval per review have held. Thanks. Just looking to extend that to September 24th of 2018. Do I have a motion to extend this permit to that date?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Annual goals and objectives, I just want to spend one moment, this is at the time of year, so for the next meeting, I'll provide a draft for you, and then you usually spend a meeting or 2, so you'll probably finalize in October. But we'll have it for you for the next meeting, get something either in the packet or handed out. Back to growth management.
Can we get out of here by 8?
We can.
Motion to adjourn.
Sorry, Alan.
It's okay. It's okay. We're almost there anyway. Won't be too long. A couple of projects. One, I was up at Hammond Woods today, and 2 good things. One, there was a contractor starting work on the granite curbing. Downey Lane is the side street on the right, and he was down by the cul-de-sac starting to cut. And then he had marked off the granite curb locations throughout the rest of the subdivision. I also noticed that they've made huge progress on removing the stump piles. I didn't see anyone today removing, but in locations where they were, the equipment was sitting there and most of it is gone compared to what it was. So I'll just keep you updated. The 90-day period to get the work done, we're only about 22, 23 days into it. So it's a good start, at least. Under growth management, again, a few things. We've got public hearings scheduled for your next meeting. One for that site plan for the coffee house proposal next to the Charlton Sewing Center, and the other one for the proposed parking lot addition up at Bay Path. So those two are scheduled for your next meeting. And we already went over the Nichols one. I wanted to grab a map for the next item. Matt Franz at the Regional Planning Agency is the GIS computer guy, and when he comes in here to see us, he's always looking at the map that the agency did for us years ago on subdivision growth locations and color coding different decades. So he played with something with a couple of interns. They get more and more data and more quick technology from the state. So he actually, this data is statewide, and he used us in Charlton as kind of a pet project draft, and I asked, when he showed me what it is, I asked him for a copy for you and a copy for Kurt for feedback. He pulled out of state information, literally from the colonial days to today, parcels that were built on in Charlton and color-coded them into 6 historic categories. I can't believe that one of them is 1734 to 1800, the blue, the dark blue. Then the entire 19th century is light blue. 50 years from 51 to 2000 is the tan, and that's where you see Charlton took off a half a century. And then he did the orange, 2001 to 2010, and the past 6 years is the brighter orange or red. So I told him I'd show it to the board, and if you had any questions or any suggestions. Kurt and I were looking at it today, and Kurt had a interesting suggestion. He thought that since that 50-year period from 51 to 2000, he was thinking about that, how you can see by the decade how it changes decade to decade. Could he maybe break that down beyond the 50 into either 5 or 10 year periods, add a few more colors? I mean, the 1980s were an explosion in every community in Central Mass. It would be interesting to see just how the 80s went, you know, different decades. So if you like that idea too, Matt can just click and play and do another version type of thing.
Kurt's the one that's where we created, so
Yeah.
it'd be kind of different with that idea.
You could also say to him, keep this one as one version and do another one that you can look at either way. I mean, it's all just simple e-files at this point. I'm just stunned that they have, at the state data level that goes back to colonial days now, in the statewide GIS. That's mind-boggling.
It's amazing what the state has for data. It's absolutely.
Yeah.
Curious what the accuracy is.
Yeah,
That's a
what
good
I was
point.
I mean,
thinking.
not to,
You're right, that happens all the time
it's a
too.
nice tool, but the accuracy might be.
Skewed.
I mean, from 51 to 2000, and the more relevant years to this century, I'm sure is
Yeah.
it's pretty accurate. But
Yeah. To me, the one thing that jumps out is that from, you know, the second half of the 20th century,
Yeah.
look how the town exploded. You know, I mean, it's uniform across the whole town. Amazing. Yeah, I'd like to ask him more about the data, where it came from, and put it together, that type of thing. But it's interesting. It just illustrates, you know, and he kind of wanted to play with it in-house as a pet project of his, and because he does a lot of work for us, and he saw that on the wall one day last year, he just played with it and then surprised us about a month ago, said, hey, guess what I've been doing? Yeah.
Could be registry records.
That's a good point. I'll ask him if it's the
'Cause they're
same
pretty,
database.
You
Yeah.
can, I mean, you can go to the registry of deeds and get every mortgage, every
Sure.
land exchange. So they've been pretty ahead of the game.
Yeah, I'll ask him about that. Yeah, that's a good point, whether it's a different database that could be looked at or if they're sharing the same source. I guess there's a program called Mass GIS at the state level, and they allow people like him at agencies to just tap into their statewide at whatever level, whatever they want. They get hundreds of layers of different things at this point. If you want me, I can provide the feedback to him that both you and Kurt had the same reaction of, could he play and break up some of, like the 50-year period a little smaller? See what it looks like.
Sure.
Right.
Let the guy earn his money.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Keep his interns busy.
Yeah.
They're back to school.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Was a summer intern, right? I haven't done it because you weren't at the last couple meetings, but do you want to update the board on the status of the project and what your board has decided at this stage?
Yeah, my board, after having a meeting, this goes back a couple months, doesn't it? Yeah. They decided not to go ahead with the project. And Dominic was requested to come to the board meeting, but that was a month we didn't have a board meeting. So I haven't gotten back to him to see. This month's board meetings is going to be crazy, so probably get him in if he would like to come in October.
My understanding from what you and I talked about, and correct me if I'm wrong, is what your board is concerned about is the state requirement that the nonprofit partner own the building?
Yeah, there were a couple of things, and that was probably the biggest part. And we did state right up front that it would be a land lease. But I guess they didn't quite understand exactly what that would involve until we actually had the meeting with them. And they would be having the land lease, they would build the building. Of course, we could give input, but we really couldn't have, the board did not have as much control over what actually would get built and how it would be managed. That's still another sticking point. And at that point, they just said, let's not do anything. Board feeling is that things could change, it could do something else. The state does change frequently. In this particular thing, you know, with the buildings and everything, I don't really see that changing in the near future. 10 years from now, I can't say, you know, but they just wanted to pull back, take a deep breath, and see what would happen.
It's disappointing, but I also respect, I understand, it's hard. The state has had this policy that a lot of people are uncomfortable with the past few years, that you can't get the funding and just expand the housing authority. You've got to bring in a developer partner that has ownership and control of elements that in the past you have. But it's the only way to do it these days, so, you know, it's tough.
You know, it was, when the housing authority was built, it was like between the housing authority and the state, and they financed it and we ran it, and the housing authority was created, and that was a win-win for everybody. And like you said, unfortunately, they're not doing that type of it anymore. You have to bring in a developer and work with them. And also it would be, just because of the configuration, how the land would have to get divided, where we would have housing authority and they would have their part. And it's almost 7 acres down there, but still when you start putting up buildings, 7 acres just seem to come in together. And so they just wanted to sit back and see what was going to happen.
Yeah. Like you said, if they change their mind, it's just picking it up again. There's nothing's been wasted. Nothing
No,
has to be
everything that's been
redone.
done, we kept, we will keep, and it's just a phone call to get going again. Maybe things will change.
Yeah. One thing you might want to do at some point, if you want to revisit it with them, you could ask one of the state housing staff to come out and meet with you guys, and that way you're hearing it right from the agency, assurances or the way things have to be, and that might make them more comfortable in the future and during a reconsideration discussion.
I can bring that up at our meeting here, and maybe even have a meeting with somebody from DHCD and developer
That could be helpful.
together, and they can have, you know, both of them to ask questions. Well, what about this? What about this?
Yeah. That might be, at some point, be able to get it up and running again. Sure. Just got a couple quick items from my list. Just a reminder again that I appreciate it because I wasn't available on the 20th, that the next meeting is the 27th, and then in October we'll be back to the 1st and 3rd, which is October 4th and October 18th. And just a reminder, the town meeting is Monday, October 16th. I've got Mike Andre's latest spreadsheet of projects that he's field inspecting and managing in the field for the board. I'll just pass it around. One for Jane and the board. And in front of you, Jane put, delivered fresh today, the updated zoning bylaw. And again, I want to thank her for all of her hard work. And what we'll do is we'll send out the note to the usual users like zoning board and town council with copies of it too. We've already put it on the webpage. Lisa Westwell, the webmaster, has put it on. Line color for the print version, and July 2017 is the date, which supersedes the November 2015 version. And just a heads up that we received yesterday, so I'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting. 61A release request from a law firm out of town for some property on King Road that's undeveloped that someone's looking to take out. And those are my items. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Do we give this at all to the selectmen to review at all?
No, because that's just our in-house, what Michael is inspecting for us. We did give it to the, actually, I take it back. We give it as part of our budget submittal.
Okay.
Yeah, but we don't give the regular updates. But last year and the year before, we put it in our budget submittal to show, you know, the level of activity, one source, and we have other sources of stuff, activity that's not on that, yes. As we head into budget season, we should do it again. That's a good point.
Any comments on this at all? That'd be it, Alan?
Yes, thank you.
Anybody have anything to discuss?
I do.
Sure.
What's that?
No, go ahead.
Treehouse
Yes.
and traffic.
Yep.
Where does that sit with us?
Good question, because I'm aware that there's been concern and discussion. It doesn't, in that when we did the site plan review, what we do with all site plans along Route 20 is we gave a full package to DOT District 3. And we asked them if they felt that, because they're the experts and they do that level of analysis, if there should be anything in terms of from a turning lane to whatever. And they had no problem with anything. They ran their numbers. And they chose not to recommend that we incorporate anything, which would have been more their jurisdiction, and we're more cross-referencing it in an administrative site plan. So we did ask the question, it was part of the review, and, you know, the state traffic people didn't see anything. They probably analyze it, and I don't want to sound too technical, they use what they call ITE trip generation, but that doesn't take into factor, you know, trends. And that didn't take into factor, obviously, my personal opinion. Treehouse has a strong social network popularity and a lot of excitement. And so it'll be interesting. I know that John is talking to people at DOT, whether they feel that will be temporary in how you just manage it, or it will be sustained and they go back through their driveway permit and ask them to do something.
We discussed at the last meeting the possibility of notifying them to see if they would put some signs like a half a mile, quarter mile away on each direction.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed myself coming from Sturbridge, there's nothing that says it's there, and then I'm assuring that people with their GPS goes, you've met the place, they panic
Well,
and
they jack on the brakes and they make a left in the Zorba's
Yeah.
parking lot.
Yeah, and
Or
everything is thrown off.
if it's right turn only coming out of the parking lot, they make a right and then make an immediate left into Zorba's or into, like that's Vinnie's property.
yeah.
So what would you suggest, like, roughly how far away, so I can give them some detail?
Well,
what
I
you
Even at
suggest?
Sampson Road.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd ask that we write a letter to DOT asking them to come out and observe it for themselves
Yep.
when they're open during hours, and let them come up with a solution. But
Good
there's
idea.
definitely there's some issues there, and there's going to be a pretty, hopefully not a serious accident, but there's potential for a serious accident to take place.
I think that's the way to go, to write to DOT and copy it to the Treehouse people that regarding the whole issue, you respectfully request they go out, look into possibilities including signage that would help with the flowage, and you'd be glad to be part of the dialogue if they wish to.
I think they definitely need to observe it during hours. Not that I'm trying to jam Treehouse up in any ways, but there's definitely a safety concern there.
Absolutely.
Maybe like an eighth of a mile or something, like, just because you don't know it's there, the driveway's.
Yeah. Because I noticed a year ago on Route 20 they changed all the street signs. They're like 3 feet long and like 20 inches high.
Oh,
Like at Richardson Corner
More
Road,
visible.
all them.
Yeah.
And if something like that could be put up prior to Treehouse's entrance, you know,
Yep.
quarter mile.
Sometimes a small step like that can make a big difference.
Oh, absolutely.
I know they have detail officers, but the officers in the property, they're not out on Route 20 at any time, so
Yeah.
they're not helping that. It's helping with their parking issue on site, getting people to come and go, but it's not helping with the congestion on Route 20.
Yeah. Good idea. I can write something up and chairman can sign it.
Great,
Sounds good.
be a start.
Yep,
Will
absolutely.
you just CC the selectmen on that as well?
Sure.
Just so they know that we're, because I'm sure they're writing their own letter too, possibly, just,
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, because if we send something to the DOT and they send something to the DOT, that might make them
Yeah.
even more.
Yeah,
hopefully.
aware of the situation.
We can also mention in the letter that that type of idea you have put in some other site plan projects that seems to have worked well. It's
Mhm.
happened there a few times before. So,
Okay, sure.
absolutely.
That's something you'll draft up the next day or two.
Yeah, no problem.
Can you, after you draft it,
Mhm.
can you like email it to the board members so they have
Sure.
an idea
Yeah.
what we asked for?
Yeah, and then when everyone's okay, you can finalize.
I'm sure with Peter there, he's been getting comments and
You know, I haven't, I just, every time I drive through there, and it's just, when they're, it's only when they're open, so
Yeah.
how to address it will be interesting to see what they can come up with, but
Yeah.
there's definitely cause for concern, so.
At least a sign, at least.
at least a
that.
sign
Yeah.
both ways,
Yeah.
letting people know that it's coming up, because their beautiful sign is down in the valley,
Yeah,
and you don't see that.
and it's tough with the sign bylaw where it can't be in the easement. It
Yeah.
has to be on the property.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
But within their right of way, the state could do what they want to do. No
Correct.
problem. Yeah.
Yep.
Sure. Sounds good.
Any other discussion? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.